I married Kevin, who was in the same film club as me in college. I'd always admired the stylish homes in French movies and had been telling Kevin that one day I'd love to renovate the old house we bought. 3 years later, I was completely shocked when I returned home with my newborn daughter. The house had been expanded into a two-family home.
Hey, my mom's going to help take care of the baby while you are at work.
Kevin looked delighted.
Well, you wanted to remodel anyway, didn't you? This works out perfectly.
Wait, who paid for this?
Oh, I used your savings.
My mother-in-law admitted it without hesitation. The commotion woke up the baby, who started crying in my arms. As I soothed her, I looked at my mother-in-law with a cool voice and said, "I have no savings left, by the way." She looked at me, stunned.
What?
I'd been holding back, thinking a father was essential in our daughter's life, but I've had enough. If they thought I'd put up with this forever, they were gravely mistaken. I'm Cynthia, a 40-year-old homemaker. It's been 3 years since I married Kevin, who was a junior in our college film club. Back when we were club members, we barely interacted, but at an alumni event, we reconnected and hit it off. We both loved foreign films, so after that, we often went to the movies together, then shared our thoughts over coffee or dinner, savoring the afterglow of each film. Kevin's outgoing personality drew me in more and more. "Kevin, you're so late. You're an hour behind schedule." I said, "Let's catch the morning show to avoid the crowd."
Sorry, Cynthia. I'll buy the coffee and popcorn, so please forgive me.
Kevin had a bit of a sloppy side, but when he apologized with a cute pleading look, I always ended up forgiving him. Our friendship eventually turned into a serious relationship, and we married a year later. I had dreams of a happy family back then. Little did I know that it would all crumble in the worst way possible. When we got married, we bought an old house with a big yard. The house was located on a great corner lot with a southwest view, so our mortgage was pretty hefty. But Kevin had gotten tired of living in an apartment and insisted on getting a house. I brought up the idea of remodeling the interior and garden eventually. You see, I'm a huge fan of French films and have a strong passion for Southern European-style interiors. As I slowly collected antique lamps, ceramics, and iron decor to decorate the room, I felt a growing sense of fulfillment, as if I were inching closer to my dream. Then, sometime after we got married, I realized something. Even though we agreed to split the chores, I was doing everything myself. The reason was clear. Whenever I asked Kevin to do something, the cleanup afterwards was more trouble than it was worth, so I'd end up just doing it myself. If I asked him to hang the laundry, it would be all wrinkled. If he cleaned, there would still be obvious dust and dirt everywhere. If he made dinner, the meat would be half cooked and the vegetables barely touched by heat. For some reason, he couldn't even manage to heat up bread properly. When I gently pointed out these things, Kevin scratched his head and apologized.
Sorry, Cynthia. Unlike you, I'm clumsy, so it's just hard for me.
I'm not particularly skilled either, you know.
Look, I just end up giving you more work. You're better off handling everything yourself. Plus, I'm tired from work.
Kevin, with a goofy grin, kept piling on those excuses. It left me with a lingering unease, feeling like I'd somehow been skillfully talked into it. After living on his own for 10 years, you'd think he could handle some basic chores. Since he works late most nights and comes home exhausted, He just assumes it makes sense for me to take care of everything because I get home earlier. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one losing out, and it gets to me. But watching movies together on the weekends still brings me joy. Having a projector, a roll-up screen, and speakers set up in our little theater room makes watching movies a true pleasure. Even though we're busy with work during the week and often end up going to bed at different times, on weekends, after watching a movie together, we naturally shift into couple time. Once we have a child, I'm sure Kevin will change. I was sure he'd make an effort to become a good dad. That's what I kept telling myself. A year into our marriage, with no baby yet, we decided to start trying. I asked Kevin, who enjoyed his drinks, to cut back and made an effort to eat more meals at home rather than eating out. I have a desk job, so I'm prone to lack of exercise. I'd get off the bus stop early on my way home and walk, or use the stairs at the station. I did what I could to stay active. There was a reason I was feeling pressured. Since it was our second year of marriage, I wanted to have a baby before my mother-in-law started pressuring us. I planned to give it my all this year, and if it didn't happen, we'd go to a fertility clinic together. 6 months later, I noticed my period was late. I bought a test after work and rushed home to check. My heart was pounding as I looked at the result. It was positive. I walked out of the bathroom and called out to Kevin, who was scrolling on his phone in the living room. Kevin.
Yeah?
I showed him the test I had hidden behind my back, and finally, he looked up from his screen.
Wait, is it?
Kevin's eyes widened as I teared up and told him the news. We're having a baby.
Really?
Kevin's face lit up in an instant.
Yes, Mom's going to be so thrilled. Let's call her right now.
He took out his phone, but I quickly stopped him. Let's wait until things are stable. If something happens, we'll just disappoint her.
Oh, good point. I hope it's a boy.
Kevin smiled, rubbing my belly with excitement. We don't know that yet. Relieved, I thought he might turn into a devoted father after all. However, after that day, Kevin started coming home even later than before, blaming work. On weekends, he'd eagerly head out early in the morning. If I asked why, it was either meeting friends or my parents called me over. Kevin, I feel awful from the nausea. Can you stay home on your days off? I could use some help with the housework and shopping. Balancing work and everything else is tough. Kevin cheerfully replied.
Don't worry about meals. I'll eat out. Take a break from chores until things calm down. If you're feeling that bad, why not quit your job? Man, I'm so considerate.
He nodded to himself, satisfied, and went off to take a shower. If I quit, who's going to pay the mortgage? I muttered, exasperated, though Kevin didn't hear me from the bathroom. When I entered the stable phase of pregnancy, Kevin told his mom, who came to visit the following weekend. She brought over 2 boxes of baby clothes in her car.
Kevin, way to go. Now I can be a grandma. Wait, where's Kevin?
My mother-in-law, barging into the living room, looked around when she didn't see Kevin. Kevin went out somewhere this morning. Lately, he's hardly ever home. I added a hint of criticism, but it didn't faze her one bit.
He's a guy, you know. They want to go out and have fun.
By the way, what's all this?
A gift from me. They're clothes Kevin wore as a baby. Dress the baby in them once they're born.
She flipped the box open right in front of me. The smell of mildew filled the air, making me pinch my nose instinctively. Well, isn't this a bit too old? We don't even know the baby's gender. I tried to express my concern politely despite the nausea, but my mother-in-law brushed it off cheerfully.
Oh, if it's a girl this time, you can just keep trying until you get a boy.
She laughed loudly, scattering the rag-like clothes around the living room before leaving. After that, she continued to come by every weekend without fail, pushing broken toys Kevin used as a child and old parenting books onto me, lecturing on how to raise an heir and ways to serve your child and husband. Then she'd rub my belly, whispering,
You're going to be a healthy boy, right? We don't need a girl.
It was too much, so I complained to Kevin. It's not fair to the baby, you know. And every weekend, I get this sick feeling in my stomach just thinking about her visit. My precious weekends are ruined. Kevin's face twisted with annoyance.
She's just talking to the baby. Don't be so negative. Besides, she's saving us money by bringing clothes and toys, right?
I couldn't help but think, if they really wanted to help, they could give us something new. To them, these faded, worn-out clothes and toys held sentimental value, but to me, they were just junk. Little by little, I started disposing of them, making sure Kevin wouldn't notice. When it came to decisions about baby items, Kevin was no help at all.
I have no clue. You decide, Cynthia.
That's what he said, barely glancing at the online shop screen I showed him. His complete lack of interest in our first child was heartbreaking. He probably just needs time to feel like a father. Once the baby's born, he'll change. Patiently, I kept telling myself that. Soon, it was time to start my long-awaited maternity leave, so after a checkup at the clinic, I began preparing to stay at my parents' place. On the morning of my departure, Kevin drove me to the train station. As we parted, he flashed an innocent smile and said,
Don't worry about me. Mom's taking care of everything. Let me know when the baby's born.
I could hardly believe this was coming from a nearly 40-year-old soon-to-be father, but I managed a vague smile and headed for the gate with my big belly. My parents' place was 2 hours away, so I usually only visited during holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas. The last time I saw them, 3 months ago, my belly wasn't very noticeable. So when they picked me up at the nearest station and saw my round belly, they were visibly emotional.
I heard late pregnancies can be tough on the mother. Are you okay? Take care of yourself, Cynthia. The baby's health is important, but so is yours. Don't push yourself.
It must be hard with Kevin's family nearby. Just relax while you're here, okay?
Their kindness warmed my heart, bringing tears to my eyes. Thank you. So far, both the baby and I are healthy. I'll be in your care for a while. I appreciated them deeply and got into the car. Once warmly welcomed back, I spent my days helping out around the house, taking walks in the neighborhood, and keeping active until my due date. During this time, I didn't hear a word from Kevin. Occasionally, I'd text him asking, "How are you?" and he'd respond with something out of touch.
Thanks to Mom's home-cooked meals, I'm great. Honestly, her cooking is the best in the world. The house is sparkling clean too, so coming home is a joy every day.
He'd go on about himself, showing zero concern for me or our baby. I couldn't understand how he didn't seem to care. Over a month later, I finally gave birth to a healthy baby girl. As soon as my water broke early in the morning, I contacted Kevin, who, to his credit, took time off and rushed to the hospital. After gazing lovingly at our sleeping baby, my parents soon left.
We'll go before you get too tired.
Then Kevin arrived to take their place. Watching him hold our daughter with a beaming face, I felt relieved, thinking he'd finally be affectionate. But as he held her, he said something that left me stunned.
So, you'll be coming back home tomorrow, right?
For a moment, I stared at him in shock, then quickly responded, "What? No way, I can't. I'm being discharged in 5 days, and I told you I'd stay with my parents for another month." Kevin's face showed clear frustration.
What? You're staying there even longer? I really want Mom to see her grandchild soon.
"Well, if you could take paternity leave and help me with the baby, then I'd come back right away. But you can't, right? There's no way I can take care of a newborn alone."
Come on, every mother raises kids on her own. Aren't you relying on your parents a little too much?
Kevin sneered at my plea, and I felt a pang of disbelief. It's rich coming from someone who's been relying on his own parents. And he's the one who threw all the baby decisions onto me, not even trying to be a father figure. But I was too tired to argue, so I managed to say in a barely audible voice, "Just make sure to explain it to Linda."
Yeah, got it.
Kevin muttered dismissively and left, clearly annoyed. After I was discharged from the hospital, life became so overwhelmingly busy that I quickly forgot about dealing with him. Just managing feedings every 2 hours was more exhausting than I'd imagined. Thankfully, my mom changed diapers for me, and my dad helped with baby baths and outfit changes, which was a huge mental relief. Thanks to them, I got through those challenging early days after childbirth. While I was at my parents' place, Kevin never once came to visit.
Doesn't Kevin want to see the baby?
My father asked, a valid question. Could you come see the baby sometime? However, even when I sent him messages, all I got in return were cold, indifferent replies.
You'll be back soon anyway, right? I'll just wait till then.
We had decided to name her May if it was a girl, so I went ahead and submitted the paperwork myself. What kind of father acts this coldly? Looking at May's peaceful sleeping face, I felt waves of guilt and often found myself in tears. A month flew by, and after expressing my thanks to my parents, I left with May in tow. On the train ride back, a heavy sense of anxiety filled my chest. Will Kevin really help with May? Even though his mom had been coming over to cook, knowing Kevin's lack of skill with housework, I was sure the place would be a mess. As soon as I got home, I'd probably have to start cleaning. Thinking about all this, I got off the train, hailed a taxi in front of the station, gave the address, and got in the car. I'd heard that baby girls were generally easier, and indeed, May was a good eater and a sound sleeper. She was now dozing peacefully in my arms. Gazing absently out the window, I caught sight of our house in the distance and froze. What? Something about the exterior seemed off, so I squinted to take a closer look. It couldn't be real. My house was supposed to have white walls and an orange roof. So why had it turned into a house with such an outdated design?
Ma'am, we've arrived. Ma'am?
The driver's voice snapped me back to reality. After paying, I balanced May in one arm and started to get our bags, but the driver kindly helped by unloading them and carrying them up to the door. Even the entrance had changed from a stylish door to a heavy wooden one. I rang the bell, and as soon as Kevin appeared, I blurted out my question. Hey, what on earth is this?
Huh? Oh, you mean the renovations?
As I struggled to process, Kevin dropped the bombshell news.
Mom's moving in, so we converted it into a two-family home.
Moving in? My voice came out high-pitched in shock. This was news to me. Kevin smiled, seemingly oblivious, and started explaining.
Mom's going to raise May while you're at work.
The way he said it, like it was the most natural thing, made my head spin. Wait. Are you saying she's moving in without even consulting me? As I stood in the doorway holding May and arguing with Kevin, my mother-in-law showed up.
Don't make a scene at the entrance. It's unsightly.
Linda, I haven't heard a thing about this.
Oh, weren't you planning to remodel anyway? So what's the harm in rebuilding?
She said it casually, as if it were nothing. I was close to shouting, "What's the harm?" I'd been saving to turn this house into a charming French-style home. This old-fashioned, two-family style house was completely different from my taste, and that sudden realization hit me hard. Wait, the funds.
Oh, I used your savings for it.
My mother-in-law admitted it without hesitation. As I stood there speechless, Kevin smiled at me, completely unbothered.
We wanted it to be a surprise for you, Cynthia.
Kevin's smile, which usually felt comforting, now irritated me to no end. Unable to hold back, I unleashed my anger on both of them. Kevin, why didn't you stop her? You know what my dream was. I stormed into the living room, but the sight there drained the energy from me. What happened to the dining set and the dish cabinet? Even the sofa set and display shelf, which I'd bought with my savings, were gone. In their place were cheap furniture, gaudy Buddha statues from trips, wooden masks, and terrible oil paintings by my mother-in-law.
I sold all the furniture and dishes, she said, grinning. They weren't to my taste. Antiques sell for quite a bit, you know. I even sold the screen and speakers since they were in the way. Made myself a nice bit of cash.
Kevin, far from chastising her, just looked delighted.
Since she's moving in, we have to make sure Mom's comfortable, don't we? This is part of being a good son.
My vision blurred with anger. If I wasn't holding May, I might have slapped him right then and there. Kevin, noticing my silence, continued obliviously.
Come on, Cynthia, thank Mom. She's moving in to help take care of her grandchild. Cynthia?
I ignored him and turned to face my mother-in-law. At that moment, May squirmed in my arms. Awakened by the commotion, she clenched her tiny hands and began to cry. As I soothed her, I looked at my mother-in-law and spoke in a cold tone. I have no savings left now, you know. She looked at me, stunned.
What?
Kevin's face suddenly grew tense, and he quickly looked away. I clenched my jaw. I'd been putting up with everything for May's sake, thinking a father was important in her life, but I was at my breaking point. If they thought I'd keep tolerating this, they were sorely mistaken. Sorry, sweetie. Let's go take a nap in the other room. I whispered an apology to May in my arms, then spoke to my mother-in-law. Could you excuse us for a moment? I need to put May down in the back room.
Sure, go ahead.
I headed to the room I'd intended to make a nursery. With the sudden quiet, May began to doze off, tired from all the commotion. After rocking her gently for a while, May finally fell asleep, so I laid her in her crib. I set up the baby monitor at the foot of the bed, turning it on so I'd hear her immediately if she woke up crying. When I returned to Kevin and my mother-in-law, they were seated comfortably at the dining table. They had made tea only for themselves and were sipping it leisurely. I sat across from Kevin, who looked uncomfortable, and directed my question to my mother-in-law. You got my account number from Kevin and withdrew the money, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
She replied, nodding with a puzzled expression. Kevin took the liberty of using up the money I had saved. So now I have zero savings. Isn't that right? I looked to Kevin for confirmation, but he kept his eyes down and said nothing. So I explained in his place. He used my money after he ran out of his own, which he'd spent on his mistress. That still wasn't enough, so he took out loans from all over. The money you spent was from those loans.
What?
Her face went pale instantly. She turned to Kevin, gripping his shoulder and demanding answers.
Kevin, I thought it was Cynthia's savings, so I went all out. What are we supposed to do now?
Well, I didn't think you'd spend all of it.
And when did you even get a mistress?
Kevin looked like he was about to burst into tears. Seeing that Kevin was too shaken to respond, I answered with a biting tone. Let's see, she's about 9 months along now, right? The ultrasound shows it might be a boy. Isn't that nice? Kevin's eyes widened in shock.
How? How do you know that?
Before going back to my parents, I met with some friends from college. One of them mentioned that Mary Brown, a junior from our film club, has been bragging to everyone that she's pregnant with your child, Kevin.
Oh no, this can't be happening.
He covered his mouth, looking utterly defeated. Honestly, I've suspected you of cheating for over 6 months. One time, while you were napping on the couch, I saw a message from Mary pop up on your phone. I showed Kevin the image I'd taken on my phone, and he let out a small groan, covering his face. My mother-in-law leaned over, peered at the screen, and began reading the message aloud.
Let's see. Kevin, once the baby's born, you'll divorce your wife, right? I can't wait for us to live together.
She shot Kevin a mildly irritated look.
So, you're already planning to remarry? And you didn't tell me?
Sorry.
Let's see, what's next? Let's pick a cool, manly name together. I'm sure he'll be handsome, just like you, Kevin. So it really is a grandson.
Seeing Kevin's mother smile, looking quite pleased, made my blood boil.
Well, I'm a little disappointed. I was planning to take care of my grandchild seriously.
Oh, I see.
If I did, he'd grow up loving Grandma more than his mom, right? I'd fill his head with complaints about Cynthia until he'd say, I don't need Mom, and chase her out. Well, now my plans are all messed up.
Ignoring my horrified silence, she continued talking freely.
I don't care how it happens, as long as this wife disappears. And if Kevin's mistress's child is a boy, then we'll finally have an heir. I can't wait to see this insufferable wife out of here.
She glared at me with a challenging look, and I stared back, unwilling to be intimidated. I hadn't expected such a twisted plan. But with her, I could see she'd do it without hesitation. Judging by his expression, Kevin seemed unaware of her intentions. Still, I knew that if he found out, he'd likely side with my mother-in-law over May and me.
What's with that look? This is all your fault.
Kevin shouted, childishly defensive when he saw me staring at him.
You act like you're better than me, always putting on airs. You tried to make me do chores when they're obviously a woman's job. So, I asked Mom for advice, and she told me to just act like I couldn't do them. Mom really is a genius.
I was speechless. To think he'd been pretending to be bad at housework on my mother-in-law's advice. So, did you cheat just to feel superior?
What? No way. I've always liked Mary. I wanted to be with her, but she married someone else, so I settled for you. Then I found out from our old club friends that she got divorced, so I went to see her.
Kevin, looking excited, continued his rant.
Her ex-husband dumped her after a fight, poor thing. This time, I'm going to make her happy.
And you're fine with me struggling on my own with a baby? In a harsh tone, I pointed it out, and Kevin straightened his back, speaking with absolute confidence.
You're tough. You can live on your own. But Mary's delicate and fragile, unlike you. I have to take care of her.
I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. Kevin seemed completely lost in his own delusions. It scared me to think he might genuinely believe that cheating was somehow justified.
Oh, if Kevin's so in love, maybe I wouldn't mind if she moves in with us.
My mother-in-law mused with interest. So both of you are set on getting rid of me, I see. Fine, I'll leave today. Kevin and my mother-in-law's faces lit up.
Really?
Yes. So Kevin, you're responsible for the $1,500 monthly mortgage payment. Kevin's eyes widened, showing clear confusion.
Isn't it $500 for the house?
So he really didn't understand. Smiling scornfully, I reminded him. Did you forget? I told you that since I make more money, I'd cover $1,000 while you only needed to pay $500. And remember, we put the mortgage in my name to pass the credit check.
What? Wait, really?
Check the deed if you'd like. I'll switch it to your name, so make sure you pay it in full. Kevin, looking panicked, turned to my mother-in-law.
What should I do, Mom? I can't pay that much.
Excuse me, you said you made $100,000 a year.
That was a lie. I actually make $20,000. I was just pretending to work overtime while seeing Mary. Cynthia's salary was paying for everything.
Hearing this truth, even my mother-in-law looked shocked.
And you're sure Mary's going to move in?
Dad's inheritance should cover it, right?
Oh no, don't count on that.
Huh?
I handed my phone to Kevin in silence.
What is this?
I've connected with Mary. She's heard this entire conversation.
What? Don't mess with me.
Kevin, momentarily stunned, quickly turned to shout at me. I ignored his anger and held the phone out to him on speaker mode.
Kevin.
Kevin grabbed the phone, fumbling to respond.
Yes?
This is nothing like what you promised. You said we'd live in a stylish house, but from the photos your wife sent, it's filled with tacky gold statues and weird masks. The furniture is awful.
What?
Mary's high-pitched complaint made my mother-in-law's face flush with rage.
And moving in with your mother? That's basically just caregiving waiting to happen. Absolutely no way.
Mary.
Kevin's mother snatched the phone from his hand and unleashed her fury.
I have no use for a vulgar woman like you. Don't you dare come near my son again.
Fine, I won't. Besides, The baby isn't even his. It's my ex-husband's.
Humph. I figured it was something like that.
Kevin's mother hung up the phone and tossed it onto the table, ignoring Kevin, who stood there in stunned silence. She snorted and commanded him sharply.
Enough already. Let's just kick Cynthia out as planned and bring my boyfriend over. Got it?
What?
Your boyfriend?
Both Kevin and I asked at the same time. Smiling smugly, my mother-in-law pulled out her phone, showing a photo of a flashy, suspicious-looking man with his arm around her.
Isn't he handsome? He's a 30-year-old struggling musician. He doesn't have money since he's chasing his dreams, so I've been helping him out financially.
Kevin's face turned pale, and he cautiously asked her a question.
Earlier, you said not to count on Dad's inheritance. Does that mean...
Inheritance? I spent it all. Every last bit, including your share. I'll pay it back someday, maybe all $200,000.
Kevin's eyes widened as my mother-in-law casually admitted it without a hint of shame. He trembled with anger, a vein pulsing on his forehead.
Are you kidding me? What kind of mother spends her son's money like that?
Oh, I had to. My boyfriend wants to look cool for me, so I bought him a $5,000 designer suit and a $20,000 imported car. It was gone in no time.
Unbothered by her son's anger, she carried on nonchalantly.
And my old house was getting run down, so I thought I'd move in here with him, rent-free. I planned to win over the grandchild, kick Cynthia out, and raise the little one here with him, playing mom and dad. Kevin, you have zero sense of responsibility as a father, don't you?
Bringing a lover here is going too far, even for you, Mom.
Oh, please. You were planning to bring your mistress here, too.
Well, that's different. This is my house.
My mother-in-law was dreamy-eyed as she spoke, while Kevin was red with fury. Watching the two, I gave a slight smile. All right then, it's settled. I'll leave you both to it. I placed the completed divorce papers in the middle of the table and stood up. I'll be moving out, so I'm leaving the $1,500 monthly mortgage to the two of you. And let's not forget alimony, monthly child support, the $20,000 in my savings that went toward renovations, plus $10,000 for the furniture and dishes you sold. Looks like you've got a lot of payments ahead.
What? That much? Impossible.
As Kevin listened, his face went rigid, and he leapt up from his chair, clinging to my arm.
Wait, it was Mom who did the renovations, not me. I had nothing to do with it.
My mother-in-law instantly cut in, not missing a beat.
Oh, stop pretending. You were all in, excited to see Cynthia's shocked face.
Cynthia, who do you believe, me or Mom?
Kevin looked at me with puppy dog eyes.
The affair was just a momentary lapse. You're the one I care about most, Cynthia. Think about it. Doesn't our child need a father?
Kevin's blatant pleading ignited a wave of anger in me.
Yes, family is best after all. I'll take care of little May if she gets sick. So just go back to work and relax. What I said earlier was just a joke. Don't take it seriously.
Kevin's mother plastered on a smile, rubbing her hands together as she sidled up to me.
If you really don't like it, I can refrain from inviting my boyfriend over. Just let me stay here. I sold my house, so I've got nowhere to go. Living on just my pension is so hard.
Please, Let's just put all of this behind us and live together peacefully, okay?
Their selfish pleas made something snap inside me. Enough already. I slammed my fist on the table, making them both jump in fear. Letting out everything I'd been holding back, I told them exactly how I felt. This child doesn't need such a pathetic grandmother or father. I'm not changing my mind. You'll pay me back every cent of alimony, child support, and the money you spent without my consent. Overwhelmed, they both sank to their knees. I couldn't bear to breathe the same air as these two anymore. Being around them would only harm May. I called a taxi, and while waiting, I gathered my things. Once the taxi pulled up in front of the house, I loaded my suitcase into the car, went back inside to pick up May from her crib, and walked out the door. As I watched the house disappear in the distance from the taxi window, I felt a wave of relief. When I arrived back at my parents' house, they greeted me in surprise. Once I explained the situation, my father was furious. And my mother, reflecting on all I'd endured, teared up. My father hired a lawyer he knew, and I went through the divorce proceedings with the attorney's help. Kevin resisted initially, but the idea of a civil trial seemed too daunting for him. After 6 months of legal persuasion, he agreed to a lump sum payment to cover my savings and alimony, along with $300 a month in child support. Kevin's mother also paid the $10,000 she owed for the furniture and other items she'd sold without permission, wiring the amount quietly to my account. Lacking any savings, both of them had to borrow heavily to meet their obligations to me. I also demanded alimony from Mary. Perhaps to avoid trouble, she transferred $20,000 directly to my account without a fuss, much to my relief. As for the house, Kevin's meager salary couldn't cover the $1,500 monthly mortgage, so they reluctantly sold it and moved into a shabby 2-bedroom apartment. However, the house, remodeled in his mother's taste, was criticized for its poor design, couldn't attract any buyers, and was ultimately demolished. Kevin's mother, who had burned through her late husband's inheritance, kept pouring borrowed money into her boyfriend. One day, she spotted him in town with a younger woman, leading to a massive public argument and an abrupt breakup. Realizing he'd only been after her money, she fell into a deep depression. Now, it seems she stays shut in at home. Kevin, meanwhile, works tirelessly to cover living expenses for himself and my mother-in-law, as well as to pay off their accumulated debts. In an effort to supplement his income, he works multiple part-time jobs on the weekends, and friends from our old film club who saw him recently said he looked utterly worn out. Free from Kevin and his mother, I felt lighter and found myself more focused on work. When I informed my boss about the situation, I was given the chance to transfer to a remote work position, allowing me to continue working even after moving back with my parents. Honestly, I used to think of my job mostly as a way to cover living expenses, but now that I have the space to fully engage in my work, I've come to appreciate how interesting it actually is. Despite the difficult start, with her parents divorcing only a week after her birth, May is growing up strong and healthy. Since I was able to enroll her in a nearby daycare, I take her there on weekdays, and my parents help care for her when she's under the weather. They absolutely adore her. Her innocent little smiles inspire me to keep going. For now, I'm grateful for my parents' help, but once May turns 1, I plan to move into an apartment nearby. I have no intention of ever seeing Kevin's mother again, but since Kevin is her father, there will come a day when he and May will meet. For those times, I just hope Kevin can at least act like a father. May, thank you for making me a mother. I will protect you with all my strength. With love in my heart, I silently promised this to my dear daughter as I held her close.